Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to talk about a mechanic for bribery, which I came up with for my fantasy football management game, which I'm currently working on, but which I think might be more generally useful. So I wanted to have the possibility that the player can bribe the teams they're playing to throw the match, and vice versa can accept bribes to throw the match. I quite like the mechanical challenge that sort of corruption makes possible. Obviously, it's not very good in real life, but in games, it's quite fun. And I'll tell you the mechanic. I'll just read out what I've got in this document here, which I've uploaded to the itch.io link in the description. Before a match, the player must choose to offer a bribe, accept a bribe, or neither. In the first two cases, they must specify how much. So how much are they offering, or how much are they willing to accept? If one team chooses to offer a bribe and the other to accept a bribe, and the offer is at least as high as the amount asked for, then money changes hands to the amount offered, and the match doesn't have to be simulated. So in other words, in the game, it will say, right, you've got a match scheduled against this team. Do you want to offer, accept, or neither? And if the first two enter how much, and you say, I want to offer 1,500 gold pieces, and it turns out they asked for 1,200 gold pieces, and so you give them 1,500 gold pieces, and you're considered to have won the match. Your reputation goes up, or whatever the effect of that is. Some wandering sages offer to teach a skill of bribery. So one of the main sort of leveling up mechanic in this game, or one of the main leveling up mechanics in the game, will be that there are wandering sages who every so often will turn up and say, well, a wandering sage is offering to teach the skill of the Hail Mary pass, or this particular trick play, or something like that. And if you choose to pay for it, you get the skill. I'm not sure whether it's going to be that they approach individual teams, or maybe they're in the city and then you have to say how much you offer them, and the computer simulates the other teams making offers, and then whoever gets the highest offer gets what the sage is teaching. But either way, one of the skills will be being good at bribery. If both parties concerned have the skill, it cancels out. But if the briber has it and the recipient of the bribe doesn't, the briber only pays the amount asked for. So you might note that the money that changes hands is to the amount offered. So if you offer 2,000 and the other team says they will accept 1,000, well, you give them 2,000. But if you have the bribe skill and they don't, then you only give them 1,000. So that little system, I think, could apply to any game where money changing hands is one way to resolve a given conflict. So let's say you're making a war game and you're attacking, and you say, well, are you going to storm? The computer might say, are you going to storm the city? Are you going to besiege the city? Or are you going to offer a bribe? Or are you going to approach them and see if they'll give you a bribe to go away, perhaps? And then we can have this same interaction. Okay, you've offered 1,500 gold. The city was prepared to accept 1,200 gold to open the gates and let you in, so therefore you pay 1,500 and you get the city and no battle takes place. Right? Something like that. It only works in particular settings, of course, but for those settings, it's quite flavorful. Again, corruption is fun when it's only pretend. And of course, it doesn't have to be a bribe. It could be that you're, buying something rather than you're settling. I mean, in real life, we often settle disputes between companies by going, all right, look, you've accused me of this. How about this? I'm not going to admit that I did this, but I'm prepared to give you this amount of payment and you agree to drop the allegation that I've done this, right? Something like that. Again, not something that's necessarily great in real life because it allows wealthy entities to pay instead of, suffering the consequences of breaking the law a lot of the time. But, it does happen. Anyway, so there's a little bit more here. This bit isn't that bit I made up. I mean, I'm sure it's not particularly original, but that bit I did make up. There's another bit down here which I have taken from another game. I can't remember which. I know it's a tabletop role-playing game, but I can't remember which one. If it's desired to use an attribute rather than a skill, then both parties could compare random numbers to their attribute. If the random number is higher than the attribute, it's treated the same as not having the skill, and if lower or equal, it's treated it's treated the same as having the skill. So in other words, this is the roll a d20, compare it to your intelligence. If you roll higher than your intelligence, you fail. So for this transaction, you're considered not to have the skill of bribery, or it's treated the same as if you were using skills. And if you get lower or equal to your intelligence, you do have the skill for this transaction. And therefore, of course, the higher your intelligence, the more often you will have that skill. Maybe you would think charisma was the relevant one. Maybe some combination of intelligence, charisma, and willpower. I suppose it depends on how you imagine the fiction of the game working. A variant on this: if both players make the roll, if one of the random numbers is higher, that party is treated as having the skill and the other as not having it. So this is a good general principle for any situation where you want to use that roll a d20 against your attribute or d percentage or whatever. But that raises the question of, okay, well, what happens if it's a competitive type of test, like a running race? Well, you could say it's a long distance running race, so I should roll against my constitution. My opponent should also roll against their constitution. Well, okay, but what happens if we both make the roll? Well, that means we both don't drop out of the race, presumably, but which one was faster? Well, the way you can resolve that, you could resolve it with another roll, but a more efficient way is to just say, well, the higher successful roll is considered to win. So if you both fail, well, you both dropped out of the race. If one makes it and the other one doesn't, well, that's very straightforward. The other one dropped out, and the character that didn't fail the roll wins. Well, if both make it, look at the higher roll. And of course, you need to make a higher roll that still succeeds, you need a higher attribute. So it will tend to be the case that the character with the higher attribute will win. So that's our dice mechanic. That's more sort of general advice. That's not just to do with bribery. These are sort of more general ideas about a dice mechanic, but this is a specific idea about how bribery might work. It's how I want it to work in my game, but I thought I'd share it with you because I think it's possibly of more sort of general applicability. So this is an example of what I'm doing at the moment. I'm trying to create a sort of single document that will explain the entire flow of the game before I start programming it. Obviously, once I start programming it, I'll notice all sorts of problems with what I've written out, and it'll end up probably being quite different, but at least I'll have a structure which will allow me to start programming. And because that's something I don't have, because I haven't played a lot of football management games. I can't just get stuck in and code. Whereas if it was a dungeon crawl or something, I feel like I probably would be able to jump right in. So I will still be looking at documents for at least the next video. I don't intend to start coding in the next video. After that, I don't know. It depends on how quick and easy I find that. But I will leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.